All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Ward Radio live stream. I am your host, Cardinellis. We've got a little bit of I don't want to call it an emergent stream or an urgent stream, but we got some great news here. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has recently acquired the Kirtland Temple, and we have joining us via Zoom none other than John Hajicek here, who's kind of a mover and a shaker when it comes to not just kind of, a definite mover and shaker when it comes to church artifacts, church properties. He has thousands of artifacts in his own personal collection and has also been a big part of a lot of these acquisitions. And from what I understand, John was the $100 million competing bid for this temple. The floor is yours, my man. I see you're in front of the Community of Christ temple right there. This is a big deal. A lot of people are really excited to know some of the details. My phone's been blowing up for the past hour, so I said, I got to come back, and thank you for calling in and agreeing to talk with us, John. Tell us what's going on, man. Give us the spiel. Give us the inside scoop.
Well, I'm here in Independence, Missouri. You can see behind me the world headquarters of Community of Christ, which is, to you and I, the reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints since 1860. And I live here, and I'm a collector of rare artifacts, like you said, Mormon material culture. I've got a collection of 1 million items. So I think of things like the Kirtland Temple as objects, as artifacts that are important to our understanding of the history of the church in the 1830s and the 1840s. It's a sacred space to me also, but I also have a different lens of being able to look at it in terms of what ought to be done to preserve it or, if necessary, restore it. Anyway, so I'm here in Independence, Missouri, and I broke the news an hour ago and probably pressured the church to release its press release, I think, a little earlier than they planned on it. But
yeah, it's fun. Oh, sorry, you broke up there for a second. So, yeah, it kind of put some pressure on the church to release it a little bit earlier, then repeat what you said?
I think they wanted to announce this in a couple of weeks and maybe even at General Conference. But I went onto my Facebook with a post today, and within an hour, the church had announced the same thing, even though most of my friends, of course, were skeptical of my announcement.
Yeah. It's kind of funny that you say that, too, though, because it looks like you weren't the only one that beat the church to the punch as well. I have a couple of Twitter accounts that I follow and oftentimes call me up that have been, there's been chatter of this because people have looked at the financials of the Community of Christ for a long time. They're, behind on some financial obligations to staff and so on and so forth. So people have suspected, well, what are some ways that they could raise money in a short period of time? The sale of property and of artifacts has always, been on the table, but nobody ever knows. They're on the table for everybody. The Vatican could sell 5 of its basilicas tomorrow, right? So this has always been something that people suspected. However, one of my buddies is a real estate guy, and he noticed that the county assessor recorded a transfer. Like, I don't know exactly the name of the document, but he posted like 14 minutes before the church's final press release, said, hey, I found an interesting thing out of the counter assessor's office in Independence, Missouri. Take a look at this. So yeah, it looks like there's too many people that ruin it for them. They can't keep the cat in the bag, because this is obviously a very, very big cat to be out of the bag. So first off, what are your thoughts on this, man? I mean, you mentioned that okay, I've got my ideas on how it could be used. And best benefit the most amount of people. I think it's very interesting. I've talked to you on the phone before. This is our first time having a face-to-face, so thank you for agreeing to come on the show. But a lot of our viewers don't know you're very interesting and unique history. You're part of the big, giant, greater Mormon family, for lack of a better term. But just like we're friends with Josh Gailey of the Bicker Tonight sect, as it's oftentimes called, you yourself are not a member of the I don't want to call it mainstream. I'm trying to be whatever the respectful term is. The big one most people think about when they hear the term Mormon. You're a member of the Church of Jesus Christ that some people call Strangite, right?
Yes, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but I'm a member of try to figure out how to hold that on my left hand. Yeah. I'm a member of the church that went to Wisconsin in 1844 and stayed in Wisconsin during the 1840s and 1850s, and still has a very small existence. We're very much like a typical Nauvoo Mormon. We're a moderate we're moderate. We're moderate between the Utah Saints and the Missouri Saints. We're right in the middle.
Yeah, and so you've had this really with this really interesting a perspective in history. You've dove in for 30 years now in the collection of rare Mormon historical artifacts, properties, goods, so on and so forth. Sometimes coming at head with some of the other churches, and having a little friction. Other time doing some really great cooperative projects. But I definitely have sensed in all my conversations with you a deep love for the mutual shared history of the church. And so I'm curious, just from your perspective, what would you like to see come from? What do you think prompted this sale? What are some cool inside details you could give? And then what are some recommendations you'd like to see coming out of this new ownership of the Kirtland Temple?
Well, you're right. I've been doing this 50 years, actually. My parents first moved to Independence, Missouri in 1973, and I moved here in 1988, but I've been collecting on my own since I was a teenager. I refuted the Mormon forgeries in 1981, and I bought my first Joseph Smith period Book of Mormon in 1982 as a teenager. So yeah, I've been here for a while. I have the same interest in the Kirtland Temple that you have. It's a sacred space to me. I would like to see it preserved. I put in an offer. As you know, I put in $100 million offer for the Kirtland Temple specifically. I told them I thought it could be worth $250 million. I was fair and forthright with them. And then I made a similar offer for the Nauvoo Temple, for the Nauvoo Smith properties. And so the offer that the church accepted, the church here, the Community of Christ accepted, was $192 million. It really wasn't that far off from my thinking, including the manuscripts too that were being talked about. The Book of Mormon, a new translation or Joseph Smith translation manuscript, the characters document, the Book of Mormon characters document, and so on. So really, I was spot on in my offer, but I thought that the church in Utah ought to pay a lot more. I think the church in Utah spends this much regularly on new temples, and to get the first temple seems to be much better than building another temple in Asia for the same price.
There's no doubt there's no doubt that this is the Petra, shall we say. All right. This is the Petra of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Now, you might be able to help me out with this a little bit more. I'm reading in the article that some viewers can see on our screen briefly, put out by the church, that I didn't know this, that it was made a National Historic Landmark in 1969 and designated one in 1976. That's really interesting. But also, wasn't this listed as like one of the top 10 North American architectural beautiful buildings of the 20th century? You're a historical guy. What am I alluding to here that I'm not pegging on the head?
Well, I don't know a lot about those awards and designations, but you're not wrong on the cultural significance of it. And even to me, as a non-member of your church, I see the Salt Lake Temple the same way. The Salt Lake Temple, since it wasn't finished until 1893, but already by 1869, with the railroad, the Transcontinental Railroad going to California, the Salt Lake Temple became a significant historic site, a national landmark, if you will.
Yeah.
And the Salt Lake Temple now has been gutted. They took all of the woodwork out and the trim, the millwork, the molding, and put it through a wood chipper. And they've taken the roof off and the spires and the sphere that goes on the top underneath the Angel Moroni, at the end of Moroni. And they've lifted the temple up effectively, gone underneath every part of the foundation. And it's not going to be the same temple. It's just the stone alone. So our fear as historians is, this is an exciting moment for Mormon history. It's going to reinvigorate Mormon history. It's going to reinvigorate your church. It's a wonderful, wonderful announcement. However, we're concerned that they don't lift the temple up and pour a parking garage to go underneath it, and locker rooms and elevators.
Yeah, no, I understand because like I love my faith, and
Uh, that to the Provo City Center Temple, which was the Provo Tabernacle, and now they're doing it to the original Provo Temple.
yeah,
And so we're concerned that art and architecture and history be preserved and be accessible to the public who, in many cases, are stakeholders. Like I So as a member of this third church, I'm watching two of my larger uh, churches that have overshadowed us do a transaction between each other of property that I feel moral interest in.
yeah,
James Strang in 1846 had possession of the Kirtland Temple. And in 1860, the reorganized church was formed, but James Strang first was killed. James Strang was killed in 1856. So when the reorganized church was formed in 1860, they gained possession of the temple because all of Strang's followers joined the reorganized church after his murder. But most of his followers did. And so Joseph Smith III ended up buying it from his followers for $150, and then he tried to sell it to pay his personal debts. Joseph Smith III did, and so in 1875, the his church, in order to clear up the title, he had his church sue him for possession, but it was a friendly lawsuit that he effectively forfeited. And then the church wrote up an order for the court. The court dismissed the case, actually, unbeknownst to a lot of people. The Lake County Court actually dismissed that case and did not sign the order giving the temple to the reorganized church. But the reorganized church printed that for years as if it was a settled or ruled case. They published that unsigned order, making it look like they were the legitimate successor to Joseph Smith's church. That was 1875. By 1901, they had squatters' rights from 1875 to 1901, and so they eventually got the temple just by squatters' rights. They got a clear title in 1901, right about the time they bought the Book of Mormon manuscript. They had money and attorneys, and were doing a pretty good job of managing personal property and real property.
wow.
So the reorganized church has really had it legal title since 1901, but that left out me. We're disenfranchised. I can't say you guys are disenfranchised because Brigham Young tried to sell the Nauvoo Temple and the Kirtland Temple in 1846 or 47.
Really?
To get capital to move to Utah, but I feel completely left out here.
Oh man!
So I tried to buy it. So I got together a group of investors. I secured financing and made $100 million offer to buy the Kirtland Temple about 15 days ago, and it looks like I was spot on, like I said, for the price.
Wow, that's interesting. So do you have, I know you got people blowing up your phone. You got another 5 to 10 minutes to talk about some of these artifacts and a couple other questions, or you got to go?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. So, I love my faith, and one of the few things I trust is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Brighamite, as I've noticed they get called in a lot of these historical meetings where there's like 12 different sects that show up, right? One thing that I implicitly trust, as somebody who's actually worked with the temple department and things like that, is that they will indeed hold it as sacred, that it will also, they're very good at taking necessary measures of preservation, right? At the same time, as a person who is friends with you and has done episodes with Reed Moon and has ad nauseum talked with all kinds of different collectors, I kind of like the democratization of Mormon history because I feel that it increases a lot of accessibility, okay? I mean, it's great that our church has the resources to be able to afford something like this, because the worst case scenario would be that, the state of Ohio buys it because somebody's bankrupt, and next thing we know, it's the biggest DMV in the Midwest, right? So that's the worst case scenario. Best case scenario is somebody who actually has a moral conviction about the sacred nature of the building, purchasing it. And obviously our church is the one with the largest largest resources out of all of those sects. So they're going to be the one that's able to afford it, for lack of a better term. But as somebody who loves church history, like when they found the maps in Nahum, and I've talked with Jim Gee, and I've gone to Israel, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia, and I've visited some of these areas that are just, they change your conviction of Scripture and the Book of Mormon and of church history when you get to see it. To know that the church bought it and they're like, oh, this is great, this is cool. You know, they scan it, they put a little picture of it somewhere on BYU Studies, and then they write an article in 1996 about it. It's like, is that it? Oh man, I would almost prefer that a private collector who doesn't mind showing it off has it at his house somewhere. So if we track that guy down, you know, we can actually get a video of it, have like a research appointment. So I share your concern from outside of the church, almost as a person inside of the church. I have a trust that they're going to do well by this. So as a member of my church, I've seen them handle, as somebody who's dealt with the temple department, I've seen them handle sacred spaces with unimpeachable wonder. But I've also kind of thought, man, like if they sit on these artifacts or they don't put one on display, and the one they don't put on display is the one I want to see, that would be super disappointing. So I too share your concern, like, okay, what are we going to do with this now we have it? So before you have to go, tell us, it wasn't just the Kirtland Temple. That's the headline. But there's a bunch of other artifacts that were wrapped up into this deal. Can you talk about what the artifacts are and their significance as well?
Sure. Apparently, all the Smith properties in Nauvoo are the significant ones, and they would include the executive mansion that's known as the Mansion House,
yes,
where Joseph Smith was living in the last year or two. The homestead, which we remember as a log cabin-like structure with a white frame attachment to it, a wing. That would include the burial sites of Joseph and Hiram, and not only them, but Emma and Lucy Mack Smith, Joseph Smith Sr., all of their children and siblings.
Yeah.
It will include the houses of all three presidents of the church. So it will include Sidney Rigdon's house and Hiram Smith's home site, which is right now just a foundation, but doubtlessly will get rebuilt now. It will include Joseph Smith's red brick store, where the Relief Society was organized, where the first endowments were held, where Joseph Smith declared his candidacy for president. That was the headquarters of the church, basically, that they get now.
I didn't realize that. That's where he would have declared his candidacy for president, as the first candidate ever shot, So, wow.
Right. And so it will include the red brick store. It will include William Marks's house. William Marks was the stake president and the president of the Nauvoo High Council. So it will include their house.
And what about this translation of the Bible?
It will include the Book of Mormon. The book of the New Translation. Joseph Smith called it. You folks call it the Joseph Smith translation, and the Reorganized Church calls it the Inspired Version. It is a manuscript prepared by Joseph and those who worked with him, Sidney Rigdon and those, as well as the Bible, the 1828 Joseph Smith and Oliver Cowdery Bible that they purchased, I guess during the translation of the Book of Mormon, but used it for as a marked Bible for the understanding the correlation of the manuscripts, and made many changes in that marked Bible.
Okay. So in what ways do you see this as being a possible improvement of the situation? In what ways do you see this as being a possible detriment to the situation? Are you kind of personally looking forward to this, thinking, okay, it's good that we're these guys over here are less financially stressed now, and maybe we'll have more access to, I don't know, the characters document or so on and so forth? Or these things you've already seen and you're like, it's kind of old news, all of us already know what's going on here? Kind of where's your head at?
The documents will be in better hands, but the spaces will not be, because of the way that they script the message at the historic sites, and because of the intrusive way that they restore, what they call restoring buildings, is almost dismantling and rebuilding, like with the Salt Lake Temple or the Provo Temple. They're very, very aggressive in their restoration, perfectionists, let's say, OCD or something, and their need to just redo everything rather than let it be. I think that all of my life in this movement, I felt like, 50 years, I felt like the fact that the reorganized church owned some of these artifacts added a layer of mystique and mystery, or, something that made them even more valuable, because it created this impression that somebody else wanted them and couldn't get them, and that made them valuable. I actually feel like the Kirtland Temple is worth less today than it was yesterday.
Just because it's been consolidated.
When everything is owned by one person, right?
Yeah.
It's just more interesting when private individuals own just some of the manuscripts. And what do we own? 1%. I own 1% of the Mormon manuscripts in existence. I own 1 million Mormon manuscripts and books, but it's just a sliver. But it creates something for others to aspire to maybe go out and look for things and get them before they're lost. There are many, many Mormon manuscripts, probably 116 pages worth at least, right?
Yeah.
Many Mormon manuscripts, in private hands, and many that are in attics and basements at risk of fire and flood and other things. So the free market works as an incentive to draw those things out. And when people are aware that you can own a first edition Book of Mormon, then you go out and on a quest for one and find one. And we're saving. The free market is saving manuscripts every day.
Yeah.
As to my collection, I've got $50 million invested in rare Mormon books, and everything I own just went up 20%.
Yeah.
Because I think the excitement out in Utah is, if you remember when President Hinckley announced the building of the Nauvoo Temple in 1999 and started in 2000, opened the temple in 2002. There was so much more excitement about Mormon history for years after that, and this will be like that. I think the church needed this so bad. I think there's just discouragement among people and empty pews, and this will tend to tie people on the left and the right together with common appreciation for the history.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say, obviously, if you can stick around, I'd love to keep talking with you. I know other people want to interview as well, and I don't want to be selfish. One thing I will say before you go, if you have to go, is I noticed in the joint statement between the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and the Community of Christ, formerly the Reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or the RLDS Church, as you will read in some historical documents, okay? That the question was asked, will the Kirtland Temple be converted into a functioning Latter-day Saint temple? Which I have a feeling, as a functioning Latter-day Saint temple, that's probably why a lot of these additional measures were done in the restoration of the Salt Lake Temple as a functioning, living, breathing ordinance house. It looks like the church has made an official statement saying, no, the Kirtland Temple will be maintained and presented as a historic building that is open to the public. President Russell M. Nelson announced a temple in Cleveland in April 2022, and the church released its site address in December 22 and a rendering in July 2023. So it looks like for those that are actually looking, like obviously, if it were made into a functional LDS temple, then all of a sudden it would be closed to members of the public that didn't have temple recommends, and it would be kind of closed doors for the uninitiated, for lack of a better term, which is a very legitimate concern, an interfaith concern, because though, 17 different sects consider the Kirtland Temple, part of the trunk of the tree of our origin story, if one sect owns it and has rules about temple recommend and so on and so forth, that excludes everyone else. And I think the church and Russell M. Nelson made a very wise decision saying, hey, look, it's going to be a historic building that is open to the public. And I feel good about that decision as well. Any last thoughts before you got to go, my man? I know I can hear your phone buzzing while it's in your hand.
I had something. I hope I gave them a lot of ideas. Like I said, I offered $100 million for the Kirtland Temple. I told them and that was a written offer. They acknowledged it. And I made a similar offer on the Nauvoo property and told them I could make a substantial offer on the Joseph Smith translation manuscript. So it's interesting that the deal came through at $192 million. And also my offer to them had exactly what you've said in my offer. I said that I would put this into a foundation or trust, and I would keep it open to the public, and I would make sure that it was unaltered. And so that the fact that the church has agreed to those terms is very exciting to me. I'm I either influenced that final outcome, or I was just spot on, and I'm in sync with them because they came up with the exact same thing, almost the exact same number, 192 million for all of it, and the promise to keep it open. So that part is the good news.
All right. Awesome. Now, so do you have to go and do another interview, or you don't want to hang out while we read some of the details from the article? Do you have to go and talk to some other outlets? I've heard your phone buzzing in your hand as we've been talking.
I want to talk to KSL and the Salt Lake Tribune, but I can do it. I can do another minute.
Okay, cool. Then one last question would be, you have an amazing collection. It's been on my list of out in the field trip episodes to do for over a year now, heading to this house of yours that you finally finished. You know, it was under construction when we spoke probably about 6 months to a year ago. And you've got, like you said, hundreds of thousands of manuscripts. Can you just name some of the artifacts that you have so our audience understands a little bit of your gravitas as a collector? And then also tell me which one of these relics that just got sold you're most excited about and why?
When you say relics, do you mean the manuscripts? Well, the inspired version manuscript, yeah.
Okay. Well, tell us about your collection. Tell us about your collection and what you got so my audience understands, you know, the gravitas that you have as a collector. And then in this transaction of these modern relics that came with the Kirtland Temple, tell us which one you're most excited about and why.
Well, the relics that went with the temple, if you mean the buildings, I mean, the Nauvoo house is promised by Revelation to be built in section 124 of the Doctrine and Covenants. In terms of the relics, I don't know if you mean manuscripts, what they sold other than the characters document, which it's not Martin Harris's characters document. It's probably John Whitmer's. And so definitely the Joseph Smith translation of the Bible is, you know, right next to the I originally thought the Book of Mormon manuscript was worth 100 million, and they sold it for 35 million. And I thought the new translation of the Bible, the inspired version, was worth about a third. So depending on which of those figures you take, you know, that document was worth at least 10 million, if not 30 million.
Wow, this is intriguing. All right, man. Well, thank you so much, John, for what'd you say?
I was going to show you things live.
Oh, hey, show me. Yeah, are you kidding? This is the best part of my day. You know? Only on Ward Radio can you literally have, I love the 21st century. Only on Ward Radio can a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints who's a total enthusiast about Mormon history call up John Hajicek via Zoom in front of the RLDS/Community of Christ Temple and then go to the back of his truck in a bow tie. You're like Jordan Peterson with your bow tie and your matching glasses. It's awesome. And you all of a sudden bust out a bunch of church relics. This is cool. What is that?
So I brought some Kirtland books to show you.
Oh, great. Get out of town. What is it?
I'm being stalked by other people that are here on the temple lot. I'm trying to walk away.
Oh,
so I brought Kirtland books. I brought a Kirtland Book of Mormon and a Kirtland hymnal and a Kirtland Book of Mormon. And this is the Kirtland Book of Mormon. This is a hard way for me to do this. I'm sorry. Because I've got a one-way camera.
Hey, it's all good.
This is Willard Richards' copy of the Book of Mormon.
Wow. Whoa. Yeah. Okay.
That he took on his first mission, the first mission abroad to England in 1837, and gave this copy to his wife on their wedding day.
Wow. Holy smoke.
I'm having to do this.
Hey, you're super talented, man. This is actually really incredible watching you do it. Wow.
So that's a Kirtland Book of Mormon. So it's just exciting, you know, to be able to have something on this momentous day, to be able to touch, you know, to touch Mormon history from Kirtland. This is the first Book of Mormon to leave this continent. this copy,
Wow.
1837. And I'll show you real quick a hymnal. This is how I got started. I bought a Joseph Smith period Book of Mormon in 1982.
Wow. That is incredible. I'm not going to say whether or not I was born by 1982 or not. That just shows how long you've been doing this, my man. That is absolutely incredible. Okay.
So that's the first edition hymnal.
Wow. Get out of town. Okay. That's beautiful. How do you authenticate something like that? Is there a tell specifically?
Is there a what?
Is there a specific tell that you look for?
I've been doing it for 50 years.
You just know it?
I know.
Okay.
I know the paper. I know the printing. I know the binding.
Okay.
And then the Doctrine and Covenants. Here's a real pretty copy of the Kirtland Doctrine and Covenants.
Wow.
So I'm showing you the three books, the Book of Mormon, the hymnal, and the Doctrine and Covenants.
Bro, do you have a bodyguard, dude?
I do.
Okay. I was about going to say, man, I don't want some cat watching this live stream thinking, hey, I see that guy over there in the SUV. You know? That is so awesome. Look at that. Okay.
It's really hard to do. I normally do this at a table, but
no sweat. I see it. Wow. Latter-day Saints right there. Get out of town.
And then check this out. This is my true love. I started out collecting books and then documents, and then I really started to appreciate graphic images and what they tell us about people. This is an original painting of Joseph and Hiram made by an artist named Sutliff Maudsley in Nauvoo in 1842 from life.
Yeah. Now, Sutliff Maudsley, wasn't this the artist that would use like a sheet and a canvas and a broadcast light in order to trace your silhouette and then would refill the rest by hand? Is this the same artist?
Exactly. So, and the Smiths loved him. Remember, he did all the Smiths. So each of them stands up probably on different days and the word spreads. Joseph gets his portrait made. Emma gets her portrait made. Emma gets her portrait made again. She likes the artist.
Yeah.
People ask, does that look like Joseph? Well, I don't know, but Emma had the same artist paint herself twice, and each of her kids, Joseph Smith III, Frederick Granger Williams Smith, and Alexander Smith, are each painted by this artist. Then Hiram comes over and says, I want one too, and Hiram's wife gets her painting done, and they all do. And then the other general authorities like, William Law and others. Here's a great painting. Hold on.
Wow, this is so awesome. Like, just while you're looking up what you're looking, I got a comment from the Dove's Nest here that's hilarious. Somebody says he's got like $3 million worth of stuff in his trunk, but he'll probably eat Arby's on the way home. And then the Dove's Nest says, does he have a website where we can see some of this stuff? So after you're done explaining this painting, why don't you give us your website so people that want to see more of your stuff can check you out? What's this?
This is by Sutliff Maudsley. It's Emma with their child, Alexander.
I've never seen this before, and I thought I knew about Mormon history and artifacts. This is incredible.
So yeah, I love graphic images. Sorry about that.
It's all good.
Out of the million items in my collection, a fourth probably is photographs and art objects now.
Wow, that is so incredible. So, okay, I mean...
No, the daguerreotype isn't authentic, and we'll talk about that sometime.
Yeah, exactly, man. I would love to dive into that because that's a controversy right there as well. So anyway, just really fast before you go, I know you got a lot of people to talk to. A lot of people in my chat right now would love. Do you have a website? Do you just recommend people follow you on Facebook?
I'm so sorry. I got into the domain space in 1996, and I have 1,400 Mormon domains, but they're down right now because I'm moving them. So my main site for this thing is Mormonism.com.
Okay.
One word, Mormonism.com, but you'll have to bookmark it and come back in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Because I built that in 1996 and I finally needed to overhaul it.
Well, I can put in a plug for your Facebook profile.
Facebook. I post everything on Facebook. I post almost every day something cool.
Yeah. I was gonna say Facebook is not my primary social media platform, but whenever I do venture on there, you're one of the people that I have bookmarked as showing up on the top of my feed, and you will post all kinds of incredibly interesting artifacts, relics, modern manuscripts, old daguerreotypes, things just like this. It's awesome. So anyway, thank you.
And what I'm really trying to do there on Facebook and my other social media is to spread the word about preservation. So that's my message. I'm trying to share the things I acquired. Everything I own is probably going to go to Yale University and probably 5 different universities, but Yale will have first pick. But really trying to share the message of why these things are important, get people to understand that there's a market where these things trade. And hopefully get other people to do what I'm doing.
No, I love it. Hey, I got to tell you, when I get my first big windfall, I want to be a little mini Reed Moon, a little mini John Hajicek. I don't know any other names. You're the only two. You know what I'm saying? But
okay, Reed Moon is my friend, but you couldn't be more different than Reed Moon and I. Reed Moon is a bookstore and a strip mall, and I'm building a university quality Mormon book collection with 1 million items in it.
Well, then I'll start the university. I'll just start the university. We'll call it, Ward Radio University. I don't know. Nowadays, they got Prager University. They had a Trump University. They got universities for anything and everything nowadays. I'll just start the university, man. And then we'll all just collaborate together. It'll be awesome. So thank you so much for hanging out with us. I don't want to be disrespectful. I know you got to talk to other people because you're a big deal. We are very grateful that you were able to hang out with us and do this awesome haul out of the back of your trunk. I guess just make sure that's locked before you get on the phone with KSL, man. So thank you so much. Any last words before you go?
No, thank you so much. You're always the best at this. I appreciate you very much. I always enjoy your show. Thank you.
All right. Hey, thanks. Sweet. Awesome. Once again, there was John Hajicek, guys. Check him out on his Facebook profile. For those of you guys that want to stay on, I'm actually just going to cover right now the what was said in the article on Church News. So once again, thank you very much, John Hajicek. We are going to talk later, my man.
Thank you. Have a great night.
See ya. All right. So, guys, that was absolutely incredible. I am stoked out of my mind to hear that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has indeed purchased the Kirtland Temple, but it looks like it's not just the Kirtland Temple that they have purchased. Let me catch up on a couple of super chats right here really fast. Thank you very much for everybody that was super chatting. I didn't have Brittany the Shadow with me in order to be able to be keepers of the chats and catch up. So, unfortunately, the super chats, I can't scroll up high enough to actually see what people super chatted. But right now, if you have any questions, I will do my best from here forward to be able to read the super chats as long as they are appropriate and germane to the conversation. We're going to go over the details of this transaction as delineated in Deseret News. So just really fast, man, I got to be ignoring a ton of phone calls here because this is big news here. I got a lot of people calling me. They don't realize, hey, I'm live streaming here. All right, give me a minute. I'm live streaming here. All right. So anyway, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints now owns the historic Kirtland Temple and other property from the Church of Jesus Christ. The two churches said in a joint statement. So first off, that's a very good sign for me that the churches are cooperating and this is an amicable deal. Okay. Now, I don't know if it's like frenemy amicable. I'm not privy to all of the inner workings. However, I will say, and can speak from personal experience, not about this individual transaction, but at large, I have generally found the Mormon history community to be a very cooperative and a very what's another synonym for cooperative that kind of insinuates that, bygones be bygones and we're going to overlook interdenominational disputes and so on and so forth. I have generally found the Mormon Historical Association not the association itself, because there is actually a legal association, but I would say the people deeply invested in Mormon history, so willing to preserve that history that they approach it in a very, very ethical and ecumenical way. And it seems to me that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, from where I stand right now, and at least by what I'm reading, is doing the exact same thing, which actually makes me very, very happy. So I'm just going to go over a couple of these details really fast, and then open it up to a couple of questions before we go. Before you go, please remember to like the stream and share it with your friends. I'm going to give you all of the information that I can glean from this as best I can, because yes, I've been flooded with all kinds of information about this over the past 2 hours. Actually, frankly, over the past 2 years. But now it finally came to a head, and we found out the rumors are true. So anyway, the Church of Jesus Christ also purchased other historical sites in Nauvoo, Illinois, including the Red Brick Store, the Mansion House that you hear a lot about in the early history of the church, the Smith family homestead, and another historical and a number of other historical items, including the Bible used in the Joseph Smith translation of the Bible. Now, from what I understand, this is not the Bible that he read James 1:5 in. I believe that one is still at large. A lot of people don't know where the Smith family Bible is. That is the Bible that he read James 1:5 in, that triggered Joseph Smith's quest to know which of the denominations were true according to Joseph Smith history. And that'd be really cool to see if that verse is underlined, right? You know, but this is the Bible that he was using, which was a later Bible, if I am reciting my history correctly, that was used in what some sects call the New Translation, what we call the Joseph Smith translation. All right. The final sum was $192.5 million, which, please tell me that 0.5 was a tip and not a negotiation point. Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, please tell me they asked for 192 and you said, we'll give you 192.5 just to be a Chad. I'd hate to think that they said, yeah, we want 193. And you're like, no, 192. And then you landed in the middle at 192.5. Hopefully it was a tip, not a ding. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, the temple was nominated as a National Historic Landmark in 1969 and designated one in 1976. So I think that would also be one of the considerations that Russell M. Nelson had to take into consideration in purchasing it. It'd be great if it were a functional temple and we could do ordinances there. And it's possible to have the building both be public and private for ordinances simultaneously. This is what the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints does in New York City. If you ever go to the New York temple right there, it's near Juilliard. If you take not the NRQW, and it's not called the Red Line. The Red Line is in Boston. I think it's the 123. You get off. I can't remember. All of my New Yorkers tell me where I go wrong. I've unmemorized the map. All right. But anyway, if you go to the New York temple, what's really interesting is specific floors you cannot get off on. Okay. Unless you have a temple recommending you're going to do the worship services in the temple and so on and so forth. And it's soundproofed and it's a reverent space and so on and so forth. But, floors like 7, 8, 9, those are church office building floors. Floors 3 and 4, that's like regular chapel services and so on and so forth. And then obviously the basement for proxy work for the dead, and like floors, whatever the numbers I omitted in that, are the ones that are used for worship services. So it is possible. I mean, there's a way that the church could actually make it a functional temple if they wanted to, while still being respectful of it as a public landmark. But then again, our temples hold a practical worship service function that if they could be met by a nearby facility like the Cleveland temple that they mentioned, it seems not totally necessary to try and make it a functional building, especially if it would be valued as historical and open to the public and so on and so forth. Also, historical landmarks by law cannot be really without a very, very good excuse. And there are protections for religious excuses out there. But we do believe in, being ruled by kings, principalities, and rulers, and upholding and sustaining the law and so on and so forth. So I know the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints would be interested in upholding and sustaining the law of historical landmarks and and so on and so forth. So I have a feeling this statement is probably going to be the way it is for a long time, and it's going to be a beautiful building that we can go visit as a public landmark for a really long time. And if you want to do vicarious work for the dead, then you're going to go do vicarious work for the dead. Shout out to anybody that is joining us right now. We just interviewed John Hajicek, who was actually the competing $100 million bid for the Kirtland Temple, but just got beat out by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Brighamite, as it's called in a lot of the historical circles, which is the mainline North American big Mormon church that is headquartered in Salt Lake City. That is the faith that I belong to as well, that purchased it for $192.5 million. So anyway, the rest of this article goes on to say the joint statement, which I will read for you all right now. That today, Tuesday, March 5th, 2024, the responsibility and ownership for the Kirtland Temple, several historical buildings in Nauvoo, and various manuscripts and artifacts officially transferred from the Community of Christ to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for an agreed upon amount. All right. Together we share an interest in and a reverence for these historic sites and items that are committed to preserving them for future generations. A couple of super chats here that I just saw fly by that I'd love to highlight. I saw Canuto de Leon. Where are you? Where are you? Oh, come on. Where's the super chat? It's flying too fast. I need Brittany the Shadow here. Oh, did you take him away? Oh, here they are. Canuto de Leon says, I heard Mobile Mormon Museum does birthday parties too. Ask if that's true. Yeah, we used to be called Midnight Mormons, and somebody made a super chat earlier saying, I love that Midnight Mormons, MM, which was our abbreviation, has just met Mobile Mormon Museum. So maybe we should combine and have it be MMMMM or 5 M's, which would be hilarious. We could call ourselves M to the 5th. I used to be called B5, B to the 5th. In elementary school, because I was a big, bad, bulging bag of brains as a very intelligent person, an erudite. That was a weird nickname that I was given one day. I don't know how Gardner thought that up, but it was pretty awesome. Now we got to go with M5, M to the 5th. All right. The Midnight Mormons, Mormon Mobile Museum, and see if we can't keep that going. Also, Kurt Erickson. We've received the records for Kurt Erickson to join the ward. Everybody that would like to invite Kirk, or not invite, but welcome Kirk to the Ward Radio Wigwam, the Ward Radio Warship. All right, the Ward Radio Wormhole. Please put a W in the chat. Thank you very much for joining. Now we're going to go back to this statement by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We got 5 minutes here left, guys. 5 minutes here. So if you got any super chats you want to get out of your system, make sure that you get them in the chat right now. Discussions leading to this landmark agreement commenced in June 2021. This exchange of assets is significant for our church. All right, and they look forward to fulfilling the divinely envisioned purpose for our temple in Independence, Missouri. Of course, Russell M. Nelson, the prophet and president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, made his statement saying, we are deeply honored to assume stewardship. And I love that he views it as stewardship and uses that specific word. It's a religiously charged word that insinuates a profound responsibility that goes just beyond the quotidian and it goes into the celestial. So Russell M. Nelson is thinking celestial, and says he's deeply honored to assume the stewardship of these sacred places, documents, and artifacts. And then says, we thank our friends at the Community of Christ for their great care and cooperation in preserving these historical treasures thus far. We are committed to doing the same. Okay. Now, the Kirtland Temple, this is what John Hajicek was a little bit worried about. And frankly, it was a concern I can identify with. The Kirtland Temple will remain a historic building. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints plans to reopen it March 25th, 2024 for public tours at no charge. If any of you guys had been there before, it was kind of like a little mini museum. I think you had to pay like $20 to get in. I remember my family went there and visited, and the RLDS church had a really kind of cool video that you would watch. And they had actually a very simple but profound crescendo to their presentation that I really, really liked. Obviously, I'm biased to the audiovisual presentations of our church and to the style of the way we run things. Because, hey, what's the purpose of having a team if you're not going to be rooting for the home team, right? But I do give props to the RLDS Church for having had a really interesting video that talked about the succession crisis and where different people went and how the Kirtland Temple ended up in their custody. But what was really cool is when the music finally crescendoed and the PowerPoint presentation on the screen finally said, and behold the Kirtland Temple or whatever, the screen actually stops, the projector goes off, and then it raises, and behind it you realize the screen was becoming a blackout curtain for this giant window panel that is pointing at and towards the Kirtland Temple. And it was pretty awesome sitting there in Ohio and getting to see like that screen raise and the big temple there. I give the RLDS Church credit. It was a really cool presentation. So Fam Forever has been a member for 2 months. Thank you, Fam Forever, for the super chat. Says this is so exciting and awesome. You're right, it is, and glad to see you super chatting, my man. Let's continue with the statement by the church. The Kirtland Temple will remain a historic building. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints plans to reopen it in March 2024 for public tours at no charge. Likewise, in Nauvoo, the Smith family homestead, the Mansion House, and the Red Brick Store will also reopen on March 5th, 2024 for year-round public tours at no charge. More details about the transaction, assets, and other items included in the agreement will be forthcoming. And if our church is good about something, it's about transparency about historical documents, artifacts, so on and so forth. Just go look at the Joseph Smith papers. Just go look at the fact. All the anti-Mormons want to say, yeah, but Joseph Smith and Solomon Spaulding and Captain Kidd novels and then you do View of the Hebrews. View of the Hebrews. I read View of the Hebrews. And so they just bought View of the Hebrews and published it free for anybody to read. So if you believe View of the Hebrews inspired the Book of Mormon, okay, not only do I have a bridge to sell you, I have 3 bridges to sell you at top dollar, and I promise they're real, okay? But for those that might actually believe that red herring, all right, just go read View of the Hebrews. Just go read it. It's free and our church publishes it. That's like saying the Constitution of the United States of America was based off of Gulliver's Travels, all right? And then the United States just buying the original Gulliver's Travels and saying, wow, if you think Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, and John Adams were risking their lives over Gulliver's Travels, here, go read Gulliver's Travels and come back and talk to me. So anyway, our church is great about giving really awesome high-resolution scans and so on and so forth and published documents to at least of these like high-profile manuscripts to the public. I wish some of the smaller artifacts that maybe they don't think are as important would come out, and they are very good, according to Don Bradley, about research appointments for people that want to go physically to the location and do a research appointment. You don't get this kind of access with like the Catholic Church in their catacombs of, I don't know, the ball that Galileo was dropping from the top of the cathedral in order to prove gravity, or I don't know, the heliocentric solar system model, right? So I do believe that there's always room for improvement, and I'm a huge fan, just like John Hajicek said, of the democratization of church history and having both public and private partnerships that own these relics and so on and so forth. At the same time, of all the institutions that I trust most in this equation, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So I actually look forward to seeing what the church is going to do with these documents. Arbin Ransom, who's been a member for Arbin, is that the same Arbin that I met in the plane to Las Vegas? You got to send me another chat, bro, so I know if it's the same Arbin Ransom, all right? But he says, thank you for all your hard work, Cardin, and to your family who sacrifices too. No, thank you, Arbin. Thank you, my man. So let's keep going here really fast, finishing reading the announcement. The historic transfer underscores our longstanding effort to preserve religious and cultural heritage. Okay, and the Community of Christ, also known previously, just so you don't get confused, as the RLDS Church, is an international faith community dedicated to fostering authentic connections with one another and with God. It strives to restore Christ's peace on earth and challenge unjust systems that diminish human worth. Awesome. That's great. So it looks like we found a good partner in, preserving some Mormon history. Really quick, frequently asked questions for everybody before we go. Again, if you have any super chats you want to get out of your system, please make sure that you send them right now. Good Donut says, let's not feed concern trolls that imply these sites will be renovated as a Wolf Lodge mall and water park. Yeah, I definitely think there's multiple schools of thought on the restoration of buildings, and I'm not privy to the exact details that John Hajicek is referring to in the Salt Lake Temple, and I'll gladly re-invite him on and hear his questions and comments and concerns about the Salt Lake Temple. But there's those that in restoration say, hey, you got to restore the functionality, and then there's those that say you have to restore the form. And just like form and function have always had this friction between each other since the Roman philosophers and Plato started talking about them, there has been contention in the restoration of buildings. There's purists in both camps, and sometimes compromises have to get made that the function people don't like, and other times compromises have to get made that the form people don't like. Now, I'm a little bit with John Hajicek when it comes to form over function, because to me beauty is an inherently godly aspect, and just because maybe modern preferences and modern opinions on beauty may not coincide with past ones, I'm generally kind of a preservationist and a conservationist in that regard. But yeah, I trust that our church is going to prayerfully consider this and ethically consider this, which is something that I think most people in Mormon history would share that positive view, right? So thank you very much for the super chat. Good Donut. Definitely not going to be a water park. Although with that said, I think water parks are very family friendly, and maybe our church should consider investing in water parks. Like if we're building the City Creek Mall, you know what I'm saying? And we're building that we're buying that $157 million dollar investment of that industrial park in Florida. And we've got peach farms that feed the poor, and we've got the largest cattle ranch in Florida in North America out there in, I think it's Miami-Dade County. If we can have cattle ranches, peach farms, why not a water park? Why not a water park? Do you hear me, church office building? It's hot here in Southern California. Go buy Magic Mountain. Go buy Magic Mountain. So anyway, Rex Good says, I think the temple there is beautiful just as it is. It is very beautiful. I look forward to an improvement on the grounds. I think the church's landscaping division is really good at creating sacred spaces. And I've often even said they need to go as far as creating meditation parks. So I'm curious to see if they can't purchase other properties in the area and kind of almost expand what can be done surrounding the temple. So anyway, here's the frequently asked questions. We'll burn through them before we go really fast. Send us your last super chats if you have any questions. What is included in the transaction? Like we said, we've got the documents and we've got the building. We also have the Bible and the characters document. What are the most significant items? The Bible Joseph used in the translation, 7 letters from Joseph to his wife Emma, John Whitmer's history of the church, and original portraits of Joseph and Emma Smith, the cornerstone of the Nauvoo house, the original door of Liberty Jail. That's a really interesting one. The original door of Liberty Jail has been on display in some, I've seen pictures of it where it's on display in a museum, but never seen it in person. And a document with the title of Characters, which may contain a sample of inscriptions from the golden plates. We have an intriguing interview coming out soon with Jerry Grover, who is the one that did indeed translate that Characters document that you can look forward to. So again, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe to this channel, to make sure that you are able to see that, please make sure you like this live stream and you subscribe to the channel. Also, how did the community of Christ acquire these materials? After the saints left Kirtland in the 1830s, different parties controlled access to the temple over the years. In 1901, as John Hajicek reported earlier, the community of Christ, then known as the Reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, secured title to the Kirtland Temple through legal proceedings. The Smith family properties in Nauvoo remained in possession of Emma Smith after Joseph Smith's death, and she and her children eventually joined the RLDS Church. Thereafter, the properties passed through family connections to the RLDS Church. Other documents and artifacts were donated to the RLDS Church archives by their individual owners. What many people don't realize is the size of the RLDS Church. I think there's somewhere around 250,000 members right now. Strong, which is formidable. That's the size of that's the size of the city that I grew up in LA County. Okay. So that's nothing to shake a stick at. All right. That's a lot of members. However, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Brighamite, as sometimes it is called in Mormon historical circles, which is the LDS Church, the one Mitt Romney belongs to. All right. The one that Brandon Flowers belongs to. All right. The LDS Church has 16 million worldwide, and generally is the one that most people talk about, at least in the North American media, when referencing Mormons, aka members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So anyway, why did the Community of Christ sell these materials now? As Community of Christ President Stephen M. Veazey noted in the joint statement, the transfer of materials at this time enables their mission and priorities around the world. That's one way of putting it. I know that they're trying to make good on some financial obligations that are pretty well documented and inescapable unless you do unethical things and stressful. So I commend the RLDS Church for doing what they had to do to make good on some of those promises to their financial obligations and so on and so forth. And what better person to partner with in this transaction than another church that will cherish these artifacts as well. So why did the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints purchase these materials? Oh, come on. Do we even have to answer that question? It's the Kirtland Temple. You know, it's like, hey, the White House is for sale. If you're into Americana, you want the White House, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. You know, the sites and artifacts in this translation relate to significant events of people in the restoration of the gospel of Jesus Christ. What is the relationship between the two churches? I'm very happy to see that publicly they declare themselves as strong, respectful, and friendly towards each other, which is awesome. And frequently asked question number 7, have there been previous transactions of historical materials between the two churches? Yes, in 2012. Several properties, including the site at Hans Mill and the Joseph and Emma Smith home in Kirtland. And also 5 years later, the Community of Christ sold the printer's manuscript of the Book of Mormon to the Church of Jesus Christ, which Jonah Barnes shared pictures of on this program as well, if I'm not mistaken. Thank you very much, Wendy, for the super chat. She says, this is an amazing day for the Church of Jesus Christ. Rejoice. Thanks to the Community of Christ for having been good stewards of the temple all these years. All my gratitude and respect for Co-Christ, which I believe is how she truncated the word Community of Christ to fit it inside of the super chat. But let me tell you, that'd be a really cool Twitter handle. Co-Christ. I'm in the Co-Christ Church. That'd be pretty sick. What was paid for the properties? $192.5 million without assigning specific values to the property and the items. So it was a package deal. We're not saying one individual book is worth 50 or one individual asset is worth 100 or 120 or 200. We're just saying, hey, it's a package deal, which is also signaling that the church is going to hold on to it for a long time. These things are not going to be for sale again. And will the historic sites be open to the public? As we stated before, yes. They're historic monuments, and the church does not, as of now, have a spiritual need of converting it into a functional building. Therefore, it will be left open to the public, and tours will begin commencing in March of 2024. I think it said on March 25th, 2024. And will admission be charged of visiting the sites? No. Will members of the Community of Christ continue to have access to the sites? Yes. And will the Kirtland Temple be converted into a functioning Latter-day Saint temple? No. And finally, will the church continue to pursue development of its proposed new visitors center near the Nauvoo Temple? Yes. The proposed visitor center in Nauvoo will orient visitors to the historic site and contemporary significance of the Nauvoo Temple. The use of the other two visitor centers in Nauvoo will be determined in the future. What a beautiful day for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Now, unfortunately, that's all the time that we have right now, guys. We're going to have to go. I got another 60 seconds if you want to throw one last super chat in the chat. Other than that, I do have to say, guys, hallelujah, my man. This is awesome. Just great things do happen. And I woke up this morning not thinking this was going to happen, and it happened, and I'm excited to be here. I'm excited that you guys could be here with me. Shout out to Manhatva on Twitter, who is checking the official records and sniffed out 14 minutes before the church even announced that the Kirtland temple was sold. He saw that the county assessor in Missouri had actually done some kind of title transfer or something along those lines and said, hold on, methinks the Kirtland temple be sold. All right. And shout out to John Hajicek, who was just very gracious with his time and said, hey, hold on, I'm getting a lot of calls here. Ward Radio, you guys love this stuff. He actually volunteered to come on the show, and big shout out to him because right now he's one of the men of the hour to talk to about this transaction as somebody who is apparently involved very intimately in the transaction. So shout out to him. Follow him on Facebook if you want to see some very interesting Mormon historical artifacts. And also shout out to everybody that has called and given tips and insider information and so on and so forth. Really fast before we go, if you are able to, please make sure that you join us in the Discord. If you go to wardradio.com on the social bar, you'll notice that Discord is one of the social media platforms that we hang out in quite often. And shout out to the moderators who are also always helping us. The moderators on Discord, you guys, you make it happen. And I cannot thank you enough for helping provide, frankly, I don't like the term safe space because oftentimes that's used as a pejorative in order to restrict thought, not to encourage it. But really, it's a fertile place to be able to respectfully discuss anything and everything tangential to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. There's historical groups. There's Heartlander stuff, Mesoamerican stuff, archaeological stuff, a prayer roll, church news, just sociability with other members of the church. Everybody that joins Discord ends up loving it, having a lot of fun, saying, these are my people. So please join the Ward Radio Worship, the Discord. And yeah, other than that, it's been real.